Feels good to be back. Happy New Year, AJ Przinsky's favorite phrase. What's wrong? Why are you already staring him down?
He
threw something at me before the show started. We're trying to make cinematic gold here, and he's throwing stuff.
I gave him the hat of Christmas right before Christmas, and then he said, "Oh, it's too tight around my head," and then the hat was still sitting here. Turn your phone off, man. And all of a sudden, I threw it at him. I said, "Here's your gift back." He didn't take it. So you know what? Scrooge over here. Yeah. We're good to go.
Todd's working on his New Year's resolution. I heard you yesterday saying you wanted to eat better, and then you crushed some candy before the show. So you upgraded. You at least took something a little more from the ground this time, right? With corn that is popped and then caramelized.
I did have half of omelet today, spinach and tomatoes.
Look at you.
Half though, too. So
you just only had half of it.
My
What'd
wife
you do the rest of it?
The kids ate all. I let them eat first because they go to school. I'm like, take what you want, and then my wife and I look like, I guess we're splitting this one.
Because the kitchen closed.
Yeah, the kitchen was closed.
It was done.
We didn't want to make any more.
You get the leftovers.
Yeah, that's all good. But if I'm really hungry, I'd make some Cinnabons.
Part.
You like Cinnies?
No,
of course not.
I don't eat that garbage.
You're strange.
You don't like Cinnabons?
I know this guy.
Who doesn't like Cinnabon?
Yeah,
I love Cinnabon, but I love Cinnabons too.
Okay.
Smell lights up the airport. All right, let's charge the damn mound and get to some biz, okay?
Let's do it.
He's charging the mound.
Where will Alex Bregman go? So let's hit some rumors, okay? First off, John Heyman's latest report is linking him to either the Blue Jays or the Red Sox as the likely favorites. Our friend Lou Merloni, who checks in sometimes on the show, said Bregman seems to be waiting for the Sox to come close. I have no idea why he wouldn't have signed already. Look at Burns. If I'm not getting what I want, make a good offer and I'll play at home. I think Bregman wants Boston, not that he lives here. I mean, to go against Lou, Todd Father, that's just not how the process works. Some of these deals get done quicker. I think based on last year's kind of dead market and players signing late and some of them signing to those prove-it deals and then end up making money afterward like a Matt Chapman or a Blake Snell, it's just the way that the cookie crumbles. And Bregman and Pete Alonso happen to be two of those players that, frankly, I think behind the scenes you have front offices saying, I see some flaws here and some concern for future years based on the contract ask. And that's where you have a little game of chicken going on right now. I think there are plenty of teams interested in his services. They might not be willing to offer him $200+ million. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. But what do you take on where he could end up? And does Boston make the most sense to you? Is that what they need to do the most?
Yeah, I mean, let's think about this. You see what Corbin Burns did, and now everybody's like, oh, man, let's all stay at home. Or, why haven't they made a decision yet? They're putting all these pros and cons, as we talked about yesterday. Well, no, that's not how it works. As you said, the player wants what he wants, and I'm sure the player in Alex Bregman is willing to come down or change a few things. And, the organization hopefully is willing to change and do a few things. And this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it takes 4 days like it did with Corbin Burns, which is great. Sometimes it takes a day. Sometimes it takes months. So it's all different scenarios. I would love to see him in Boston. I think that's a great fit for him. I think the way their organization is going this way with some of the players they've gotten already, I think it'd be awesome fit. But you also think about Rafael Devers, right? Have we forgotten about him? He's an absolute beast. Is he willing to move? I think he'd be fine with it, but it's just, if you're getting a guy like Alex Bregman, a guy who can mash and who's played at a stadium where it's a short porch and can get after it and can play some defense and is a really good baseball player, I think where they're both at in their careers, I think it would be a fine fit.
Anytime you add a bat that produces unlike he did last year, like the previous years of his career, he had a down year offensively. I think that's exactly what Scott said. to me, I think it's the size of contract that has maybe scared teams away from signing him. But to me, I don't think they've made an offer yet. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that no team has made him an official offer yet. And that's what's holding it up. I think he's put out there what he wants. They're shooting for the moon. Unfortunately for him, as they're shooting for the moon, Yankees are off the list. The Astros are now off the list. The teams that he could go to are dwindling. I thought there'd be a chance he maybe would go to the Phillies, but I haven't heard anything about that. And now you only have two teams, and really the one team is just in on everybody. So I don't know that I really count the Red Sox, but I just feel like he may have priced himself out of the market to sign up until this point. I think he'll sign. I think he'll sign soon. I don't think it's the Red Sox. I don't think if I'm going to choose, I don't think he signs with the Red Sox just because they already have Devers and they hopefully can upgrade in other spots.
For me, I think the best offer is probably going to come from Toronto, but I'm not sure if he wants to land there. He loves living in Texas. No, that's not going to be the case anymore. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he might not have a choice if he's looking for the most dough. I think the Tigers will make a decent offer, but if the Blue Jays are seriously interested, they're going to defeat them. I mean, the Blue Jays have been looking to spend their money somewhere. I do have a tip for the Blue Jays, and we're going to talk to Mike Wilner later. They should probably spend it on getting a deal done with Vladdy first and then moving on to the rest of the market. But anyway, I think the Tigers are definitely interested. I heard you guys talking to Cody Stavenhagen yesterday, but he said, I mean, they're not likely to go to a 200 million plus mark. The Tigers are doing a little bit of budget shopping. I liked the Gleyber Torres move, but I just don't see them suddenly spending that kind of cash on a free agent. I don't think it's just ownership too. I think it's a very calculated front office that doesn't want to over leverage itself on any one player. And there is still the Javi Baez PTSD, that comes from previous GM. So when you add all of that up, I think he'll get a nice offer from Detroit, but I don't think it'll be the largest offer, Kratz, just like Burns. That's the part where I'll totally agree with Lou Merloni is that Corbin Burns didn't take the highest dollar that we saw, and there were some deferrals in there, right? Taxes matter. So Arizona versus Toronto is a massive, massive difference. But I do think that the Blue Jays are going to be the team, and I do think the Blue Jays would thrive the most from having him. I think Alex Bregman is a culture-changing player. The way that he preps for games and gets every teammate involved, I think is needed in some other organizations. I think that's why Boston's interested in him, because they've got all these young guys that are about to come through, and they're like, I want them to learn from him. Detroit feels the same way. Hinch was over in Houston with him, so obviously he loves what he's bringing to the table. But Toronto lost Matt Chapman last year, and that was one of the most underrated components of what happened to the 2020 case, right? You've talked about it a ton. Sure, the bat isn't superstar level, but it's an above average bat. It's a well above average teammate, and it's the elite glove over at third base. So Bregman would help fill a lot of voids there. And if Toronto thinks they're going to compete in the AL East next season, they have so much more to do. So I think in their case, they should be desperately looking for a bat like this.
Or what you were saying before, not even talking about competing this year in the AL East. Whether they will or they won't, it's going to come down to their pitching and defense. If you want to keep Vladdy, you can't just be like, hey, Vladdy, we're just going to throw this amount of money at you. He needs to have somebody around him, and we'll talk to Mike about it. I got plenty of questions about re-signing Vladdy, but you got to have somebody there. And if it takes 6 years from Bregman, 7 years, maybe that's enticing to keep Vladdy there.
Yeah, I'm curious. We'll get to that with Mike Wilner later too. What do you got, Top Father? Last thought here, and then I want to get to your boy.
No, that was it. It's one of these markets where all of a sudden, as we're getting closer, not only Bregman, but some of these teams might try and be like, you know what, we got a couple weeks left here. I mean, take it or leave it. And some guys are going to say, okay, shoot, my market just dwindled to this. All right, I got to take it because I got to play and I got to get some money. So we'll see how it goes here. It's getting to that point.
Yeah, we're showing some of the comments. I think one was joking when they mentioned the Dodgers. He's not going to be a Dodger. It's Max Muncy's spot. Toronto more likely to get Santander than Bregman from Sicilian. Okay. I saw someone throw a Detroit out there. Jays lost nothing by losing Chapman. Mantis, no, they definitely
Mantis,
lost a lot.
stop.
Did you watch the team last year? I mean, I'm not saying it was the only reason why they sucked, but Blue Jays were a bad baseball team last year. Would Bregman play third base next season or second base from Cole? Either one. I think he's open to variety. Yeah, but if he goes to Toronto, he's playing third. If he goes to Boston, I guess it's a little more interesting, right? If you're on Boston, could he play some second and Devers stays at third and Casas first?
Could. I mean, he's going to Boston for exactly what you said. Teaching young guys how to have good at-bats, because Devers is already the superstar. They don't need him to be a superstar. Good at-bats and solidify that right-handed need of a hitter.
Let's get to Pistol Pete, Polar Bear. So there's a little rumor thrown out there about the Angels starting to do some homework on him. There's your MLB rumors put up by CBS, but specifically, I think this one was from Joel Sherman talking about how the Angels could be taking a little look. So it's from the New York Post here. The Angels are weighing a pursuit of Pete Alonso. Obviously, they have Nolan Shanwell. Shanwell's not a power guy. You know, the industry is scared by the exit velocity, does make good contact, gets on base. They also have some veterans that have certainly not worked out contract-wise on the free agent market, position players specifically. One of them right now is Anthony Rendon. Josh Hamilton was an issue. Albert Pujols for a lot of his contract was an issue. Do you think that Artie Moreno suddenly gets involved for Pete Alonso? The only reason why I think I could read into this, Todd, is because Artie Moreno clearly loves position players when he's spending his money, the owner of the Angels, over pitching. That's been a thing for many years. They did already sign Yusei Kikuchi. Do they find a little void in the marketplace here and say, this guy is getting so many cons thrown his way that he's actually undervalued at this point? I heard you talk a lot about him yesterday in the defense. I'm on the same page with you. I think he's fine. He's definitely not above average, but he's fine. He can handle first base for quite some time. And this is a bat that can smash 40, 50 plus for you during the right season.
100%. He's a guy that hits homers. He's a guy that, he's not going to have, 300 average, but he's going to be in the high twos. He's a guy that he's a leader. He's funny. He's well going. And I know anybody in what the Angels do now, you don't know what they're going to do. And I think that's the expectation of what, the Angels have been doing. Think about this, a healthy Mike Trout and a healthy Pete Alonso. I mean, that's a good 1-2 punch right there. I mean, a good 3-4, 2-3, whatever it is. I think that would be pretty good. Just to name the two guys that come off their bat, the two, big names, all of a sudden, wow, look out. Angels have two guys that are pretty dominant, and I think this would be a great pickup for them if they do have the opportunity of doing it.
I don't think it happens.
Yeah, whether it happens or not.
No, I see what you're saying. Now you start really slugging through Jorge Soler. You deal with the issue like Perry when he was on here before. Perry Managian was talking about how, hey, they need more slug. Well, there pretty much isn't any more slug available, let alone, in the league, in free agency. So, yes, I get it, but I don't see how this isn't a Mets thing. I just think it's tough. I hope the Mets give him at least the AAV that he wants. I think he might want more years than David Stearns is willing to go, but I think I hope the Mets give him the hometown, like this is a guy for us here in New York, and he finishes his career out there.
That's a good way to put it. It's the hometown overpay. And I don't mean overpay based on what he can bring to the team. Hometown fairness versus teams that are in the marketplace right now saying our age model projections for a first baseman like this are not good. So this is what we think you are. The Mets are the one club from the ownership side that can look at him and say, he's thrived in New York. He works here on so many levels. great representative of the organization. We are going to pay more than what the market says. I was laughing hysterically yesterday when I heard our friend Robert Murray say that the Mariners would be a great fit and would love to see them. There's no way that Pete signs with Seattle, because the only way he's signing with Seattle is if the market collapses and he's got to sign either a 1-year pillow contract or one of those Bellinger type deals that you can opt in on a per season basis. Do you think Pete's going to go to Seattle for a prove it deal on a 1-year contract without those ballpark?
Yeah,
or
he
the
shouldn't have to.
No,
He shouldn't have to, but nobody's going to Seattle for that.
Like,
I mean, think about what Teo got from the Dodgers.
No,
not going to happen. But I think of Teo's contract with the Dodgers, he got his $22 million a year, which is awesome. They didn't extend more years just because we got to have this guy back. It just felt like a good every 50-50. Team's happy, player was happy. So I think the Mets will ultimately end up doing that.
For sure.
And for the Angels, you think it's just time of year.
I think it's the Mets up here.
There.
The Mets are here, and these other teams are trying to get there, but it's just been quiet. Like for him, it's just been real quiet. And when I say quiet, like well, what do you mean? Well, nobody's been really reporting about him in the Mets. Everybody thinks it's a great fit, but have there been any offers? No reporters from New York are talking about it, really. They're just talking about how good of a fit, or this is the only fit, or whatever it is. But I think knowing Pete and understanding him, I think he will be just fine once it all comes out here. I think the holidays kind of put everything in a lull. I think we'll start kicking back up next week.
I will say this. I actually think you'd be an awesome fit with the Angels. And I know some people are commenting on that in the chat right now. If you want to get involved on YouTube with us, even if you're watching on TV and want to throw some comments in there, go for it, type Foul Territory. But I do think the big goal for the Angels was looking for pop. Now, they got themselves a little Jorge Soler. This would be nice for first base. It's definitely an upgrade. Shanwell's a nice player. Pete Alonso is on another level. So I do think we're hitting that point, Kratz, where a first baseman of his ilk at his age with the righty swing and coming off a down season for him, it's starting to get to the undervalued portion of conversation. And what's the word that I like to use sometimes? Surplus value. Some GMs start licking their chops like, hey, if we keep talking this player down, maybe we can swoop in and get him for under market value.
Yeah, I don't know. Even if there's one pillow contract, to me, a pillow contract, it's back to the Mets even. I get it. The surplus value is there. You're talking about a dude with 40-plus homers in 3 of his 6 seasons, 35-plus. Like, he's going to change whatever lineup he's in. I don't care who you have at first base besides, some of the elite first basemen that are out there right now.
Yep, I'm with you. Yeah, he's not going to replace Vladdy with the Jays. He's not going to replace Freddie with the Dodgers, right? But he's up there.
Yep.
He's in a upper tier. He's in tier A or B, depending on how you look at things. So, all right, let's dive into the Blue Jays. Mike Wilner is going to join us next as we see what they have in store for this free agent market. They got money to spend, apparently.
Muted, Scotty.
No, I'm not.
Now you are. Now you're good.
Oh. While we have a couple minutes for the YouTube crowd, hey, I'm back. Awesome to see everyone. I'm casually in Hawaii right now on a little layover, and then I'll be in Orlando on Monday, coming back from Japan. Excited to talk about the trip at some point too. But Hye-seong Kim, who has actually a lot of similarities to Ha-seong Kim, and they're good friends. He is going through the posting system, and I can't believe how fast it went. He's got to sign by 5 o'clock Eastern time today, so we might get a live signing during the show. I know Army Chow Mein in the chat is a huge fan of the KBO and anxiously awaiting the verdict here. We should have it. It sounds like he's not getting the offers that he wants. Here, we're looking at this KBO in English report that he's gotten offers from Seattle, the Angels, the Dodgers, the Padres, and Chicago. I don't know which Chicago he's talking about, but I mean, yes, the Cubs, being that the White Sox are not really interested in spending more than a few $1 million this offseason. Lower than expected, perhaps close to the $10 million range, guys. And this is why I usually get this close to the deadline, Kratz, is when a player isn't getting what he wants. Because often players that go through the posting system will sign pretty quickly through that process. You know, Roki Sasaki is going to sign between January 15th, 23rd. He's not going to sign on the 23rd. I mean, everyone's going to give him as much as they can in their bonus pool. But to me, he's not getting what he wants yet.
Is that because some teams aren't sure if they're out of the Roki debate, out of the Roki sweepstakes? Because they have to
No,
say
this is a different player.
money.
This is a free agent, though.
It's completely free agent.
Yeah, completely free agent.
Then I don't think they feel like his value is where it's at. I mean, you look at like
right.
the Jays, the tweet there with the Jays, you know, that's a chance. So Andres Jimenez is not going to play second base. I don't know enough about the player. I don't know enough about Kim to know, you know, does he have versatility? Are these teams, is he asking for too much? $10 million range? I don't think there's any team that's gonna balk at that if that's what he's looking for, unless they don't feel like his skills are up to par of what they're looking for that position.
I mean, Jung-Hoo Lee might have ruined the market for a player coming over too, because I think the Giants overpaid for him last year, the center fielder who missed most of the season with an injury. But Kim's a contact guy, plays good D, pretty fast, not much pop. A lot of similarities to Kim, who's his buddy. Mike Wilner back on the show from the Toronto Star and also host of the Deep Left Field podcast. Make sure you search that, check it out. Mike, great to see you. Happy New Year to you. And I want to dive right into a Toronto Blue Jays team that has shown that they want to spend this offseason. Aside from the Andres Jimenez trade, is anyone going to take big money up in Canada to head north? And why isn't it happening?
I mean, I guess not if it's not as big as the money that everybody else is offering, right? This off season feels to me like that old Andrew Friedman line back when he was with Tampa Bay. I think it was something like, if you're rational on every free agent, you're going to finish third on every free agent. And that seems to be the course that the Blue Jays are going with. You know, last winter, and we talked about the Ohtani chase, and I believe they were legitimately in on Ohtani, and I believe that they finished second and were offering just as much, if not more, than what the Dodgers were offering. But I don't believe that happened with Juan Soto this year. I feel like they got in, but then they got out before the bidding got to $700 million because it didn't tie up with their valuations of Soto. And I think that's a huge mistake. If you're not willing to go all the way, then don't even bother getting in and concentrate your efforts on other people. But it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like the Blue Jays are comfortable with keeping up with the way that this market has changed, which is why they've lost out on lots of guys, and they've made the one trade for Andres Jimenez to improve what's already the league's best defense. And I've said this a whole bunch of times over the course of this offseason. It feels like Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins are trying to prove that you can win a game 0-0 because they just haven't done anything to address what was a terrible offense last year.
That's tremendous. Win a game 0-0. I feel like if that is their plan, I think that would be an upgrade. Because tell me if I'm wrong. Are these decisions being made because they don't really have a concrete plan? And I know they'll say we have our boards, we have what we're doing here, but the uncertain future for the GM, for the manager, for their team superstar, is that making them like, we kind of want a free agent, but we're not really sure where we're going. And if we had a plan, it doesn't really revolve around overspending for any free agents, so we don't get any.
I mean, that last part for sure. I think they do have a plan. I mean, these guys are incredibly confident that they are the smartest people in the room. That, they're operating on a different level than the rest of us, which which leads to some moves that have been far too clever by half over the past 2-3 years. I think the biggest issue of all is that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is not signed. I think the Blue Jays really blew it a couple of years ago in not locking him up, and it's going to cost them. Well, it should cost them a couple $100 million, but extra than what it would have cost them to sign him 2 years ago. But I don't think they're going to sign him. He's given them the deadline of the opening of spring training. He said on a podcast in the Dominican last month that he was offered $340 million, and it's not close to what he wants. Apparently, he's looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of $450, and who knows how that's changed with the Soto signing and the way that the market has changed. But Vladdy knows that he's going to be the belle of the ball next winter. He'll be what Soto was this winter and what Ohtani was last winter, just on a lower level, but he's going to be the best out there, and he'll have teams crawling all over themselves to sign him. So he's in no rush. And the Blue Jays have really dropped the ball on him. And while he sits there unsigned, other free agents, and I talked to Alek Manoah about this the other day. It's on the current episode of my podcast, which everyone should be listening to. And Manoah said, once they know what they're doing with Vlad, then that will give other free agents the idea to know who they're playing with and what they're signing up for and all that stuff. But while they're dragging their feet on this, other people are looking and saying, what am I signing up for? There's no Vladimir Guerrero Jr. after this year. There's no Bo Bichette after this year. There's no Kevin Gausman after next year and no Chris Bassett after this year. What's going on? So I really do think that that's the biggest thing. Whatever their plan was, and I asked Mark Shapiro in October if he thought Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was a generational player, and he didn't say yes, sort of hemmed and hawed his way around it. And I wonder if other people look at this team and think, this is how they're evaluating their stars. Why would I want to come there? So for me, the plan has to involve making trades or signing people like Roki Sasaki or Hye-seong Kim. And so far, we haven't seen much of that either way.
You bring up a lot of good points. For me, it's always like Toronto's always in the mix, and then all of a sudden they go somewhere else. There's a lot of underlying points, I guess, for some people that you could say why people aren't signing in Toronto. Is it going to a different country? Is it, the taxes? What do you think? I know you've hit on a couple, but what do you think the main point is why they're not coming over? Is it because the team's not doing well? What do you think, your opinion, if you had to pinpoint something right now?
I think it's that the team's not offering them what they want. I really think that's it. I think, you guys know money talks. Toronto's a great place to be and a great place to play. You get paid in American dollars while you're spending in Canadian dollars. And right now that means you're getting $1.40 for every dollar, which is phenomenal. If you sign a $10 million contract with the Jays, it's $14 million here in Canada, and that more than offsets any tax changes. And everyone who plays here raves about it. Kratzy knows that. So I really just think that it's that they're getting what they want from teams that aren't the Blue Jays. I'm sure they were in on Teoscar Hernandez, and I'm sure Teoscar would have preferred to play with the Dodgers and with Shohei Ohtani, having just won a World Series championship and all that stuff, seeing the direction that team is headed in. Someone said to me the other day, where the Dodgers going to be in 10 years, what's going to happen when all these deferrals come due? And I said, they're going to have won 8 World Series by then. What does it matter? And that's what Teoscar's seeing. I don't know why Anthony Santander is not here yet. I don't know why the Blue Jays haven't made a push for Pete Alonso. I just think it's a matter of that whole thing where they're trying to be rational about costs, and the market has changed and everyone's outbidding them. Because if you're Toronto and you're not offering the most, then you're not going to get people to come here. You don't have to blow away everybody else's offer, but you do have to top everybody else's offer, and they don't seem to be willing to do that.
One upgrade would be if your recent guest on your podcast would come back and be his all-star form. Can you give us any update on Manoah and what he told you on your show and, what he sees as the future for him with the Jays?
Well, he's locked up for a while, right? He's not going to be a free agent until 28, I don't think. So he's got no choice but to stick around. But Manoah said that he feels great. He understands that it's not going to be this easy, but he's in month 7 of his rehab from Tommy John. He hopes to be throwing bullpens in March, lives by June, to go out on a rehab stint in July and be back in the big leagues in August. So he's hoping there's a playoff race to come back to. I mean, it depends how many nothing wins the Blue Jays can get over the first 100 games of the season. I don't think too many, but he hopes there's going to be a playoff race to come back to. And if there is, he would be as huge as any trade deadline acquisition to have a healthy Alek Manoah back. As much as he struggled in 2023, before he got hurt last season, he had allowed a total of 4 earned runs over his last 4 starts. So he was back and looking like himself again, and that would be a huge boost. Question is, how far back will the Jays be on August 1st?
You've been around this guy for a long time, from the All-Star season to his season where he struggled in 23 to last year. Does he blame anybody with the Blue Jays organization? Does he blame himself? Does he blame his success that he had in his All-Star season in 22? Did he put his finger on it or anything like that?
I think it's a little piece of everything. I mean, in 23, he was a rookie in 2021, made 20 starts and was incredible. Then was a Cy Young finalist in 22, and then came to camp in 23, a little bit out of shape. Hurt his shoulder, struggled through it. He wasn't thrilled with how he was treated by the front office, shipped down to A-ball in, I want to say, June. And I think it was because he saw how the year before they had stuck with Yusei Kikuchi all season long when he was putting up an ERA of 5.5. So at the time, I think he was a little down on himself, down on the organization, down on everything. He felt like he was hurt. They didn't feel like he was hurt. But I talked to him after a AA rehab start on the 4th of July in 23, and he seemed like the same guy again. And in 24, he seemed renewed and grown up, got married in the off season, and understood sort of that whole arc that happened over the last 3 years. Remember, this is a guy who had never struggled at any level before. He only threw 35 innings in the minors before he got promoted to the big leagues, and then dominated for a year and 2/3. And then he kind of got punched in the face, and he didn't react well, but he's, I think, really, really learned from it. And I think we're seeing an Alek Manoah now dedicated to this rehab. He came back last year in fantastic shape, and he wants to be a leader. He wants to be that kind of player that other guys rally around. And I honestly, I think we're going to see him back to that dominant form once he gets healthy.
This is this time of year for power rankings because we really don't have anything to watch for baseball, so people just power rank everything. Power rank job security from front office and coaching staff to manager. Where is their job security? Who's closest on the chopping block?
Nobody is on the chopping block. Mark Shapiro's Pardon?
Is that right? Is that right? That
yeah,
nobody Pyro
and it's wild. Like I for me, I look at this team and I see that Mark Shapiro came in here in 2015, so it's been a decade. Ross Atkins in 16. This will be his 10th season as the general manager. They inherited a fantastic team, aging, true, but with like 15 really good players, including young players on the way up, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Devin Travis, who unfortunately got hurt, a lot of guys. And they tried to win for a couple of years, didn't work, rebuilt quick, and then started to build a really good team that was supposed to peak this year. This is it. This is the last year of Guerrero and Bichette's control. Kevin Biggio was part of that, but they DFA'd him last year. Now he's looking for a job. But they built around 2024 and 2025. These were supposed to be the best years of this group. Instead, they've been the worst. 2021 was the best team that this front office put together, and it didn't even make the playoffs. They missed by one game, and they've gotten progressively worse every season since. For me, that means you change the front office, and it's not working. What they did last year didn't work, and they seem to be doubling down on this pitching and defense thing that didn't work. For me, that means you sweep it clean and everybody goes and you start fresh. And the fact that they haven't been able to get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extended just hits that even harder. But Mark Shapiro runs this show, and Mark Shapiro is beloved by ownership. They have bought everything he has sold them completely. And as long as that relationship remains, everybody's safe. Ross Atkins is Mark Shapiro's guy. He's not going anywhere because he's not really pressing the buttons. Shapiro is. John Schneider is their guy, and I think John Schneider is a terrific manager. He's doing the best that anyone could do with what he's been given. So I really do think, they talk about how stability is so important. I don't think anybody is in jeopardy at all. And if I was running the show, if you were running the show, I think things would be very, very different. But as long as Mark Shapiro is running the show, and as long as ownership has completely bought in to what Shapiro tells them, and they have, nobody's going anywhere.
So last one for you, Mike. If the Blue Jays end up a 4th or 5th place, bad team again, like last year, you don't think anything will change? Are either of those guys getting towards the end of a contract? And why wouldn't it change at that point? It sounds like
why wouldn't it change?
Right. But if they put anything together again this coming season, and Bo, maybe even Vladdy too, leave, are they going to be around for what would probably be somewhat of a teardown and rebuild for another 5 years? Are they going to sell them on the 5-year plan?
I believe so. And it makes me sad. It really does. It makes me sad and it makes me scared. As someone who's been covering this team for 36 years now, I was there every day from 2001 to 2012 when things were just terrible, with all apologies to Erik Kratz. I mean, this team was mediocre at best. It was good, but never good enough, never in a playoff race. And I don't believe the fans checked out as hard back then as they are right now. And I don't think ownership realizes it. Mark Shapiro is someone who revels in fans' disappointment or hate. He thinks it's okay. He knows what's going on and everything's going to be fine. And you know what? It's fine when fans hate you if your team is good and you're doing the right things, some of which are uncomfortable, but they result in winning. When fans hate you and the team stinks, that's not the same thing. And I'm not sure Shapiro or ownership realizes that. I do think that unless they bring in at least one big scary bat, if not two, this is going to be a bad team again. And it's going to be tough to watch for a 3rd straight year. And we're not that far away from seeing the 11, 12, 13,000 attendance days that we saw 20 years ago. And again, when fans are angry, that's good. When fans don't care, that's a real problem. And that's what's coming to Toronto, I think.
Mike, you were talking about the times that I was there during that time. Okay, I was in the bushes. Okay, I came over to big league camp. I never was in the big leagues during that time. But I can say when I played with Roy Halladay in the big leagues with the Phillies, one day we were sitting on the bus and Roy barely ever said anything. Roy leaned over they were playing Green Day song, When September Ends. Roy leans over to Chase Utley. He goes, Chase, this was the song that we used to listen to in Toronto. And it was like the funniest thing that Roy Halladay ever said, but it was so true. Because even during that time, like in 2006, the Blue Jays went out and spent a boatload of cash. Troy Gloss, B.J. Ryan, Frank Thomas was there. They brought in some superstars. But at the time,
Burnett.
The front office, A.J. Burnett too, yeah. And the front office was like, well, we'll see what we can do. The Yankees are really good.
Yeah, that's the way it was. It was, if these 17 things go exactly right, we can maybe contend for a wild card spot. And it hadn't been that way here for the last 5 years, but now we're back there again.
All right, well then the song still plays. It's still really good. I like it. So we'll see if it gets run through again in September for the Jays. I hope they land something big. Mike, thanks for joining us again. Like you mentioned, everyone check out his Deep Left Field podcast and obviously read what he's got in the Toronto Star. Happy New Year. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Happy New Year to you too. And I'm happy to be here anytime. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Always enjoy the combo. Be right back, FT fam, to talk about Roki Sasaki. All right, let's talk Carlos Beltran for a quick 2 minutes. He's the general manager of Team Puerto Rico to run the national team for the 2026 World Baseball Classic. Wow. Our first season at FT was 2023 with the World Baseball Classic. There's already another one that's in preparation, not for this coming spring training, but the one after this. So I'm sure this is a perfect guy to run a position like this. I mean, I don't know if either of you remember, there's been other legends or players that come from another country besides the US that are GMs of World Baseball Classic teams that are highly respected. Anyone that he calls from Puerto Rico to play is going to pick up his phone call, help him recruit, or do whatever that he needs them to do to put this best team on the field. So I'm not surprised here. Did either of you spend time with Beltran at any point?
Yeah, no, I saw him a bunch of times. I never played with him, but every time I saw him, we would talk, baseball, whatever it was. Dude was a phenomenal guy. He's baseball minded. He's one of the best guys to figure out tip pitchers.
I was just going to say, better watch out Puerto Rico signs there.
Yeah, I know.
Just saying.
And what I mean by that is, if a pitcher was, his glove was tilted one way, he'd know if it was an off-speed pitch, his finger movement, something. Like he would pick up on tips from pitchers and, all that kind of good stuff.
Oh yeah, no doubt. We gotta speak it. We gotta speak it. It's there, and I think I know who his manager
He was
the
ringleader of the sign stealing scandal, wasn't he?
You're right.
100%.
Yeah,
he was
the
sponsored by
ringleader.
he was sponsored by the trash.
He was
sponsored by the Waste Management Group.
By the Waste Management Group.
Very nice.
Metal
ended up costing him his job. He was going to be the manager of the New York Mets. That cost him his job. Big hit on the reputation. Hall of Fame player, and I still think he'll get in, but that's certainly going to hurt. That one's going to sting quite a bit. But anyway, it sounded like good dude, wants to be involved in baseball. I don't know if he still is, but I know after his playing career, he was still living in the New York area. So anyway, we'll see what he puts together. I'm sure he's tight with someone like Lindor.
Yachty?
Who would help to put that team together. Yeah.
Yachty will help.
Good point. That's true. First inside scoop of 2025. Happy New Year, Ken Rosenthal, and everyone check out Fair Territory. Fresh episode just released yesterday. But Ken, I'd like to talk right away about the topic that I think will dominate the next few weeks, and that is where will Roki Sasaki go? So I wanted to get your thoughts on an update, which I know you mentioned a little bit on yesterday, but also can you mix in your thoughts on the process? How do you think the process has played out so far with the way he's eliminated some teams, met with some teams, and also has his agent, Joel Wolf, pretty in the public scene about his situation?
First off, to address Joel Wolf, it seems to me that while he generally is very private, very discreet, he understands the interest in Sasaki and the need to occasionally put out some information. And it seems to me that that is what is driving this. I haven't actually asked him that, why you're going public when you don't ever go public, but it seems to me that's the motivation there. Hey, there's incredible interest in this player for good reason, and he's going to at least release what information he feels is appropriate. As far as the process itself, and I know that it's come out from Joel Wolf that there have been 20 teams that made contact. Well, there were other teams that wanted to, but were just told, hey, don't bother. You'll be wasting your time. It's not like there were 10 teams that were not interested. Every team was interested. The maximum this guy's going to get is something like $7 million. So any team can afford him. As far as where we are now, yes, there are teams that have been identified as the leaders, the ones that have met with Sasaki. And then there are teams that seemingly want to get a place at the table and have been unable to. The Red Sox and Phillies come to mind there. I don't know where this is going. I don't know where he's going to end up. And anyone who tells you otherwise is kidding themselves. But it certainly seems like the teams that we've heard mentioned, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, the Padres, the Rangers, and some others, those are the obvious frontrunners based on simply the fact that they have met with Sasaki and other teams have not.
So let me ask you this here. We've talked about this over Burns going to the Diamondbacks, and you've explained that a lot of players do come through and ask about the Diamondbacks. And I found that very, surprising a little bit because you don't hear them signing too many big name guys. Can you just go and dive deep into that a little bit and explain, why some guys always check in on them?
Right, Todd. And this is what I wrote about today in The Athletic. And it's an interesting thing that I really didn't have much of a feel for myself. Essentially, a lot of players live in Arizona. You guys know that. There are players who end up with teams that train in Arizona and wind up living in the Phoenix area. And those players have a natural inclination to want to stay home and play for the Diamondbacks. And there's an added motivation, actually a couple. But the big one is this team, the Arizona Diamondbacks, is the only team to train in the spring in the same city in which it plays in the regular season. The Florida teams don't do that. They train like 90 miles away from their home parks, and given the Florida traffic, guys are not generally going to commute. So that's one advantage. The tax situation in Arizona is another advantage, 2.5% state income tax. That's much more favorable than California, for example, for guys making what baseball players make. So you put those things together, the fact that so many players live here, the fact that the team trains and plays here, and the fact that you have a situation with the taxes that are advantageous to players, it all kinds of adds up to a desirable situation for players who live in Arizona.
Any idea why this came together so late? We didn't hear much about the Diamondbacks, but then it came together and bang. For some reports were 2 to 3 days, 3 to 4 days. It came together really quick. Any idea why, or is that just the way that Arizona front office doesn't let things leak out?
No, it's not so much that. They were in contact with Burns from the beginning, and Burns, through intermediaries, was contacting their people saying, hey, I've got an interest in playing there. And that is what happens quite often with players who either live in Arizona or want to play in Arizona. So there was contact, but initially the feeling among the Diamondbacks people, from what I understand, is that it was not going to be easy to pull off. It was going to be out of their comfort level financially. And once Burns lingered on the market, then the Diamondbacks felt, okay, maybe we have a chance. The perception within the industry was that Burns certainly wanted to play out west. And the Diamondbacks jumped in right around Christmas. And it did come together rather quickly from that point on. But it wasn't like they came totally out of nowhere. It seems like it because nobody reported interest in the Diamondbacks and Burns. But at the same time, once it started, it did actually transpire rather fast. Now, I want to say one thing, and you guys have heard me say this before, and I said this on Fair Territory yesterday. I always mention at free agent time, even at trade time, things will come out of nowhere. Things will happen that just absolutely stun us and kind of give us whiplash. You're craning your neck trying to figure out what the heck just happened. This was a classic case of that. And it reminded me, frankly, of the Greinke situation 9 years ago when the Diamondbacks signed him. Now, that was different. That was a situation, Eric, where the Diamondbacks just jumped in right at the end. This wasn't quite that, but certainly none of us in the reporting world had any clue the Diamondbacks were of a mind to get this kind of thing done.
Is that fun for you when there's something that comes out of nowhere? Because you're working a lot of different people talking to different people. You're hoping for. Is that fun when like something comes out of nowhere and you're like, "Whoa, that was awesome."
It is fun, and honestly, it's more fun when I have an inkling and can report ahead of it, like I did with Greinke all those years ago. I had a little bit of a heads up on that one, but this one, no. And it is fun because, okay, we all look stupid for not knowing this in advance, right? You can make that case, and a lot of people like to make that case that reporters are stupid. But the fact of the matter is, these things are unpredictable, and things do happen that, again, come out of nowhere. And I joked about this yesterday on Fair Territory. People sometimes get on us when we mention mystery teams, right? And I understand that. If you are talking about a mystery team, name the team. And that's why I generally don't do it. But quite often there are mystery teams. And the longer these things linger, as it did with Burns and as it is doing right now with Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman, the greater it seems the chance is of a surprise occurring. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it just plays out the way it probably should play out. For instance, if Alonso goes back to the Mets. But there are occasions, and this was one of them with Burns, where it just totally shocks the entire baseball world.
Ken, you could just tweet out mystery team with nothing. Just the whole tweet would just be mystery team, and you would put Twitter in a frenzy. But don't do that. I know you have more integrity than that. But with the Diamondbacks, is this the end for Zach Gallen as a Diamondback?
It might have been the end anyway, Erik. And let's face it, he is a Scott Boras client. He is entering his walk year. The chances of him signing an extension were minimal, maybe 5%, if that. And the likelihood that he goes to free agency and gets a monster deal, yeah, that's probably going to happen. Now, maybe Zach Gallen is like Corbin Burns and wants to stay in the Phoenix area. It's certainly possible, right? But yes, it could certainly mean that Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Jordan Montgomery, the three potential free agents in their rotation, are not back. And one of the reasons for the Diamondbacks to sign Burns and get that minimum two-year commitment before the opt-out was to protect themselves in the event that Gallen leaves after this season. At least they've got Burns next year, along with right now Brandon Pfaadt and some others, Ryan Nelson. And then they can kind of piece it back together if they don't re-sign any of the other pitchers. They'll also have Eduardo Rodriguez beyond this season.
And also, let's remember, Zach Allen likes to keep receipts on who votes for him for things, on how the Cardinals treated him, all that. So I am excited to see what he brings to the table when they just brought in another starter. He's a Jersey guy. I love Gallen, but
South Jersey, Todd,
he's
is that okay with you?
No, I don't mind South Jersey. I don't mind it. It's
right,
in the boonies.
just checking.
It's the boonies, but I don't mind it. We're good.
Todd's pretty far south. He's not South Jersey, but you're pretty far south down there in Tom's River. All right, Ken, let me go back to Roki Sasaki for a moment because we have a fan question, and I think it's a good point to actually dive into some of the details of what Joel Wolf, his representation over at Wasserman, actually talked about. Carl said, do you really think that Roki wants to play in a smaller city, or is that just put out there to stoke the market? So, that was put out there. Not having players involved in the process right now, current players on teams, was put out there. And Ken, I'm no Ken, but I was in Japan and I met with some people out there at some business meetings. So of course I asked everyone about Roki, and they gave me two things to keep in mind. They said, one, he's very young and mentors are important. So they said, don't overlook the fact that he'll want to be with a mentor. That immediately takes you to Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Darvish. And two, which I'm experiencing right now as I'm in a pit stop in Hawaii, it is so freaking far to go from Japan to the East Coast. And this guy's not rich. He's not going to be rich. He can't pay for a private plane right off the jump like some of the other guys do, pay a couple $100,000 to fly their fam. So anyway, just throwing that out there.
Good question by Carl. First of all, good points by you, Scott, as well. And no one really knows what is driving Sasaki. The small market thing came from, I believe, Joel Wolf saying, listen, he's not ruling that out. He's looking for teams that develop pitching well, and some of the small market teams, Cleveland and Tampa Bay in particular, excel at that. So I don't know where they stand in the process, those two clubs, but they would seem to be the kinds of teams that maybe could make it work. Now, do they have the mentor? Do they have the proximity to Japan? No, they don't. And that is why all along, as you mentioned, Scott, people have perceived that the Dodgers with their Japanese contingent and the Padres with Darvish, who is like the godfather of all Japanese players, they are going to be the most likely destinations for Sasaki. And maybe it turns out that way. But again, I don't know that we can rule anything out. Going back to Ohtani all those years ago, I don't remember the Angels being a particular front runner there. And I don't see them that way, or I didn't see them that way then. So when we talk about teams now, could he go to Texas? Could he go to Chicago with the Cubs? I think anything is possible, but if in the end he chooses the Dodgers or Padres, we'll then say, well, of course, these were the obvious choices all along. But we don't know that right now. We don't know that for a fact.
Let me ask you about Pete Alonso a little bit. We've talked a little bit about him. He's probably the most notable guy right now, in my opinion, that has not gotten picked up. I know there's the holidays. I know the lull happens. That's never stopped anybody. But, of course, where do you see the traction going with him? I know we brought up a couple teams, but I'd like to hear your opinion on this whole situation about Pistol Pete.
Todd, I still see the Mets as the logical place here. And you're going to hear about other teams, the Angels, the Giants, whatever. I don't know that any of those are that real. Could turn out that way. I'm not going to rule it out. We just saw a big surprise happen with Burns. Maybe one of those other teams, the Angels, the Giants, someone else steps up and decides, okay, we want Pete to be on our team. But the Mets are the team that developed him, the team that has thrived with him, a team that understands or should understand that he has proven he can play in the New York market, which not every player can. Todd, you could do it. Not every player could do it. So those things weigh in his favor, in my opinion, and the fact that he has rare power, that weighs in his favor. The issue seems to be with the Mets, and perhaps other teams as well, is that Alonso is entering his 30s. He's not a particularly athletic guy, though he works really hard at his defense. And you don't necessarily want to commit, as David Stearns, president of baseball operations of the New York Mets, that long a deal to a player with that profile. We all get it. And we all understand why there might be some hesitation and reluctance on the part of teams, but it sometimes gets to the point with free agents where we're looking at the negatives much more than the positives. And you tell me how many guys in this game hit with the kind of power that Pete Alonso possesses. So, does he deserve a 6-year, $300 million deal? No, he does not. Does he deserve a 6-year deal at all? Maybe you can make that case. No. But if it ends up shorter, then the AAV will be high, I would expect. And if he gets the highest AAV for a first baseman, which currently is 27, I believe, Freddie Freeman, that to me would be a win for Pete Alonso, even if the deal is not as long as he would like. So I'm sort of making a concession speech for him here, and maybe I shouldn't be, but at the same time, there are all kinds of ways to look at this. And if he gets a 3 or 4 year deal from the Mets with opt-outs and that high AAV, I see no problem with that. Even though they offered him more in the past, that was when he was still in arbitration. I see no problem with that kind of deal for Alonso.
Ken, I'll flip it to Bregman. So the three teams we talked about at the top of the show were the Tigers. Definitely, they have a spot for him. Seems like they're interested. The A.J. Hinch connection. Seems like the Blue Jays want to spend some money somewhere. And then the Red Sox are a little more of a unique fit. But what do you think about those three or anything else that has to do with his market right now, which is also moving slow, maybe because he had some peripherals that some teams are scared of, walk rate down, teams attacking him more, stuff like that?
I'm not sure beyond those three teams who else might be interested. I don't know that there are any other teams that are that serious. Those are the ones that stand out. They're the most obvious. Detroit, they are an obvious fit, but they've got a young third baseman coming, Young, and Jace Young, Josh's younger brother. And they have been very adamant about not blocking the paths of their younger players. Now, at some point, you need veterans too. And we talk about this all the time on this show. You can't just win with young guys. You can't just worry about their paths all the time. Sometimes you block their path, and maybe you make a trade of that younger player to supplement you somewhere else. You can do that, you know. So Detroit this offseason so far, 2 one-year, $15 million contracts. One for Alex Cobb, one for Gleyber Torres. We have yet to see this GM, Scott Harris, or this owner, Chris Ilitch, step out in a big way. Actually, Ilitch, I believe, was the owner when they did the Javier Baez deal. So he did it. And maybe that's one reason they're so reluctant. They don't want to get stuck with another bad deal. I get it. At the same time, they had a magical year last year. And it's time for a team like that, I wrote this in September, to step up. The Blue Jays, yes, as you mentioned, Scott, they want to spend on someone, whether it's Santander or Bregman, someone else. They're involved in really every market, bullpen market, starting pitching market. They're trying to be opportunistic, but they have been itching to go here. So that's a place or a team that seemingly would pay Bregman perhaps what he wanted, but does he want to go to Toronto? And it's not Canada that players oppose. It's not Toronto that players oppose. It's one of the great cities in the world. It's the Blue Jays situation. Their lack of farm system, their problematic situations with Guerrero and Bichette both being free agents after this year, that is what is turning off guys. It's not the city or the country. It's more the state of the team. We've seen free agents sign with the Blue Jays before. It's not out of the question. And then there are the Red Sox, and their motivations here are difficult to discern. Bregman, to me, is an obvious fit. Most likely would be at second base with the Red Sox, but he also could play third. You could move Devers, make him and Cassis perhaps a DH first base combination. But are the Red Sox willing to spend on an Alex Bregman? That remains to be seen. To me, he is the perfect fit. Right-handed bat, that's something they desperately need. A leader for their younger players, something they could use as well. But we have not seen the Red Sox, the full-throttle Red Sox, really step out except for moves that were not going to be too burdensome financially. The Garrett Crochet trade financially is great for them. First 2 years at least, or the 2 years that he's under control. Chapman was relatively cheap. They haven't done major things as far as spending. They've made an interesting trade, no doubt, but it's time for them to spend too. And they're in a league right now, the American League, that is weak. The Yankees, the Rangers, maybe the Astros, and I don't know who else. I know Cleveland and Minnesota and perhaps Detroit, they'll all be competitive. We get it. But that league is not like the NL right now. So if you're the Red Sox, or the Blue Jays for that matter, you can maybe do some things and be a real force in 2025. But the question is desire, especially on the part of the Red Sox.
Yeah, I'm with you. Detroit and Boston certainly need to show us a little bit more. Those are big cities. Okay, so let's finish with this. Ken, advice was not taken by you, me, and many others for a little bit of a slowdown during the week between Christmas and New Year's. This was about as active as I've seen it in a minute, with some pretty big names moving through. So I just wanted to, see if you had any rant in you for people to take 1 week out of the 52 per year in a sport that gets more volume and coverage than anywhere else to actually shut it down, not for anything but family members to get some time with their loved ones, like agents, front office execs, etc.
Well, that should happen. It used to happen. There used to be a dark period around Christmas and New Year's, but that changed a few years back. And you're right, Scott, it was very active. And by the way, I forgot to mention Bueller with the Red Sox. That's their other edition. But again, not a big money type of edition. As for the dark week and the sport slowing down, it would benefit everyone's mental health, in my opinion. But whoever the leaders are in this particular regard, and I'm pointing to the commissioner's office, they don't seem inclined to do something along those lines. The union probably would oppose any restriction on the market. So here we are, and it's going to be active. Now, what I do is I shut it down right around the holidays, and I don't return to work until after the New Year. That's one of 2 periods in the entire year that I just don't work. And that's my answer to it. I'm not going to work 52 weeks a year. I don't know that that's a reasonable expectation. But as for the sport itself, it is what it is, and it doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon.
No, FT's the same way. We do 1 week where we're like, all right, Christmas to New Year's, maybe that'll be a little slower. And then I'm checking my phone. I'm on vacation in a little bit. I'm like, damn it. But whatever. It is what it is. We're refreshed. Welcome back. Happy New Year, Ken. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. That's the Inside Scoop. Plus, you've got Fair Territory coming off all of what we just witnessed over the last week and a half or so with Burns, with some of the other signings like a Jock Peterson, which we covered in the regular show yesterday, Gleyber Torres, etc. So get it wherever you listen to your pods. Also check it out on YouTube. Be right back, FT fam. Here we are. So I just wanted to comment for a moment because we're not going to do a whole segment on Roki Sasaki after talking about him for a while with Ken just now. But guys, my little homework that I did overseas definitely has continued to lead me towards LA and San Diego. And the point from Joel Wolfe about him not judging small and big market, again, just still fits with small market San Diego, large market LA. So if he signs with one or the other, you're going to look back and say, see, I told you it didn't matter on the market. But I still think very strongly that one of those two teams will be the most likely to sign someone like that. I do see him signing West Coast and having someone to mentor a 23-year-old. Not to mention Todd Father. He'd be playing with either Darvish or Yamamoto and Ohtani, who would pick up every freaking dinner check, and they would go to dinner like every night, right? And they'd just be like, so I've got it permanently until you sign your $300-400, whatever it is, $1 million contract when you're allowed to hit free agency, because he's not going to be MLB rich. He's going to be life rich, but not MLB rich.
Yeah, and I would hope Kratzy, you would take either one of those, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, he's gonna be very rich, and he's gonna eat some of the finest foods in LA or San Diego with both of those guys. And yes, he won't have to pick any of that up. I want to see his lifestyle off the field, man. I like that. I know that I don't know much about. I've seen him play, but I want to see him play in America, and I want to see his lifestyle off the field. Like, is he like a foodie, or does he have a hobby that we don't know about? Does he collect cards? Like, I want to know the ins and out of this guy. And I think, going to these, like he said, he didn't want anybody in these meetings.
No players, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was a little interesting, man. I mean, I would have liked to meet some of the guys and talk to them. Oh, hey, what's up, man? Let me know about this place. What's going on? I'm not going to tell you where I'm going, but I need to know the ins and outs. So I think you're on the right path, Scott.
You're great, Kratz. If you were him, you'd want to talk to current players, which I guess still technically you could do. I mean, if he says, hey, I'm down to these two, and asks his reps to get him in touch with someone or anyone. I mean, think about it. Unless it's a team that doesn't have a Japanese player, he doesn't need much help to get in contact with them privately on his own without them being part of a pitch. So I think that's a pretty big factor here. Hot corner time. There's still a lot we didn't get to from the week or so that we weren't live. And yes, FT is live every weekday all year long, besides Christmas to New Year's. So let's start with this one, Kratz. This is great for our Philly expert. Dave Dombrowski, front office leader of the Phillies, said in a news conference right before Christmas that top pitching prospect Andrew Painter will not pitch in the Grapefruit League, so spring training action, and that the Phillies are actually going to save his innings for later in the season, like June or July. Salisbury, part of the Phillies show, which is part of the FT network. If you want to check that out and get more Phillies coverage, and they've had plenty of great interviews too with some of the current players on the Phils. But Kratz, I love this. The Phillies should be good. They should be a playoff team. Andrew Painter is an electric arm. And I think that mistakes are often made with how to manage the workload of a young pitcher who is coming off of a major surgery and not going to do a full workload on a season. So I'll take him for the second half of the year. I'll take the risk in this case that that the Phillies are going to make the playoffs and he is going to contribute in the second half. In other cases, sometimes I want the player up right away, like a Paul Skeens with the Pittsburgh Pirates. But the Phillies have proven that they can put a regular season together with or without an Andrew Painter.
100%. And this is focusing on what needs to happen for this season. They don't want to make the playoffs. They want to win the World Series.
Of course.
And they have the team to make the playoffs. Obviously, the Braves are going to be really good. The Mets are trying hard. But you sit there and you go, what is best for this team? And it's best for him to not throw grapefruit innings. Why is the minor leagues there? So that guys develop. If you've watched this guy, if you've seen what he's done, not only coming back from Tommy John in the fall league, he was dominating, but his entire time through the minor leagues, I think he has a just over, I think it's a 2.05 ERA in the minor leagues. People say, oh, he's only thrown 109 innings. You're right. Not everybody has to throw so many innings in the minor leagues. Cole Hamels didn't throw a lot of innings. He broke his hand one year in a fight, so he missed a lot of innings. He was ready to go. This guy was ready to go before he had the Tommy John surgery. He doesn't need to develop. He needs to be ready to go and pitch big innings down the stretch for this team, and I love the move.
More teams need to do this. More teams need to do this, and they need you. Are you trying to play for the off season? Or are you trying to play for the minor leagues? No, you're playing for the big leagues, and you want these guys set up. It's glad they come out and say that. Not many people do it. It's about that time.
And now, do you guys agree with me on the difference between these two Pennsylvania teams? So if this is the Pirates and we're talking about Painter this season, I want him up right from the jump because just making the playoffs would be a success. And you got to look at where your roster's at, what your win projection totals are. You need to get in. Yuri Perez was a good example. What was that, a couple years ago? Remember they were starting to mess with how they were taking care of him down the stretch. Then he ends up not performing well when he comes back up, and he had been lights out for the Marlins. Ends up getting hurt too after that. Not that it was necessarily the cause, but this is nice and clean for me, Kratz. It's like we're just going to start your season in June or July versus starting your season in late March or April as you would as a normal minor leaguer who is pretty close to making it up to the show.
It's funny you say that. The teams in Pennsylvania, if he's not coming up to the big leagues to start the season and he's healthy, service time manipulation. What are they doing? Now the Pirates, hey, they're a credit. They brought Jared Jones up last year. I know they didn't bring Paul Skeens up, but remember, he was just drafted the year before, so I get that part of it. But you sit there and you go, well, this is totally fine. This isn't service manipulation. This is getting the guy ready. What I don't want to see is him pitching games in the minor leagues and then not call him up. Like, to me, it's we have 7 starts in the minor leagues for you starting in end of May, and you're ready to go. If everything goes well, health is good, team has a need in June and July.
He's a great pitcher, too. I mean, from what we've seen so far, obviously we haven't seen him in the bigs, but he is really good. He's polished, right? Like command control, plenty of stuff. Fields his position well. He is just an all-around pitcher at a very young age. That's why the Phillies have been excited about him. They've hung up the phone anytime a team is called when they've talked about trades, and I think they're right on this one. There is no better advantage than to have a pitcher who could be a number one getting paid less than $1 million. Look at Paul Skeens, because pitchers their arms are a ticking time bomb. And man, if you got a guy just coming up through the league and now he's actually coming off the surgery, so his arm should be repaired. This could be something special for the Phillies this coming season. All right, let's get to Andrew McCutchen returning to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Actually, staying in Pennsylvania. Kratz, 38 years old. It looks like they truly have the same contract just lined up and an empty space for him on a yearly basis until he wants to call it.
Seems like it's ready to go. He's just he's got that 1-year rolling deal. Who had that before? Tim Wakefield had that before with the Red Sox. I love it. I love that for him. We don't hear his name come up in trade talks, in July. It's never out there because he's at home. We just talked about it with Burns. This is on a smaller scale, but to me, Andrew McCutchen is a Pirate, and I hope he can play for 3 or 4 more years. He would say he's got some old knees. They might not stay out there that long, but his family's growing and he's able to see it. I love it.
1 year, $5 million.
And I'll be brief. Not many people get this opportunity, and a guy like that, it's like, maybe I'm not going to retire. I'm going to try one more time. So
keep it coming.
Keep on rolling.
I mean, Top Father, $5 million per season is pretty good. Just keep racking it up.
Diapers ain't free.
He's got another child coming?
I mean, he's always got kids coming.
Oh, all right. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that is not my hotel room. That is someone else's hotel room. Someone's got kids on the balcony.
Listen, I heard the kids
Braun's babysitting right now on
Braun's
our chat internally, but I'm not.
Braun's
I would not allow it. Bronze
This is
baby.
why he
No,
goes to Hawaii. He has to go to Hawaii for a week out of every month, babysit
to go visit some kids.
his babies.
Yep.
I'm an adult pool kind of guy. Just put it that way. That is not me.
Todd
Not
pees-
yet.
Todd
Not
pees
yet.
in the pool.
I do. I'm not afraid to pee
All
in
right,
anybody's pool.
let's swing back. Let's let that be the last line before the commercial break for the TV crowd. Be right back. All right, let's do one during the 2 minutes we got here in the YouTube break. It's technically 3. Sometimes I say 2, whatever. So Eloy Jimenez has really fallen off, and now it's a minor league contract with the Tampa Bay Rays to try and resurrect his career. He's still young, guys, and if the Rays are smart, they won't let him touch the field. Just mix in some DH time, get your swing back, get your health back, and join a very different organization. You're going from arguably the most behind organization to arguably a top 3 org in terms of being ahead of the curve.
Unlocking value. They unlock value. Chad Mottola has done it. He has, and it's not just some guys, some hitting coaches can't connect with guys from Cuba, can't connect with guys from the Dominican or Japanese. Chad Mottola does a great job of taking the information that the org gives him. And we talk about pitching with the Rays a lot. He's done it with a lot of guys. You look at Yandy Diaz. Yandy Diaz was an exceptional bat-to-ball skills, zone discipline guy that Chad helped him hit the ball out front more contact so that he can elevate the ball. I think it's the same thing here. Is Eloy willing to do it when he used to come on here regularly and be a guest on the show? I feel like he does. I feel like he wants to. I just don't know that there was a lot of motivation in Chicago, and maybe there wasn't a lot of information for him to be had because he seems like somebody who really, he works on his English. He wants to get better at certain things off the field that I have a hard time believing he doesn't want to get better at stuff on the field too. And he's still 28. I think he's 28 years old.
Yeah,
28.
Yep.
Just turned 28.
And it might be one of those matters where it's like you sit him down, but hey, if you can't speak Spanish, so you're on the same page, you get an interpreter, say, listen, what makes you feel comfortable at the plate? When you were younger, what did you think about? What did you do? What made you be that big league hitter that you were? Let's start there. Let's forget about the mechanical baloney and let's start with comfort. And I think guys need that sometimes. You want to go back swinging a different way? Let's try it. Let's go. What's the worst thing? You can always go back to what you did before and we can tinker some things. If you're comfortable, get out there and be comfortable. And Scott's smiling. I love it. He's got another kid.
No, I'm just thinking about like 3-4 years ago, they had a fight with him internally where Tony La Russa told me this out of his mouth. He was like, we're fighting with him because he says he wants ABs, but he's got to play the outfield. And they were like, but we don't want you to play the outfield. So In the Weeds, good article from Mike Axisa of CBS predicting the next 5 years of Major League Baseball, best player, team, changes like expansion, the whole deal. So let's run through it right from the jump here. I want answers from both of you. Who will be MLB's best player over the next 5 years? Whoa, what happened?
Oh, no, you kind of got a little snooty there with us, but it's okay.
I got snooty with you? What did I do?
You didn't.
He said like to be told. He
says I want answers.
Yeah, I want answers. I think that's where.
Okay. Well, what should
sorry,
the delivery?
Sorry, I got defensive. I'm sorry. My bad.
That was in Jersey language, Todd. That's like, can you please tell me your best guess for who the best player in baseball will be in the next 5 years? Like, give me answers right now.
All right, I'll go first since Erik copied off me. It's going to be simple for me. It's Shohei Ohtani. I mean, he's going to be a beast. He's going to pitch again. He's going to hit again. He's going to mash, and he is an absolute stud of a baseball player, probably the best we're ever going to see play. We might ever talk about when we're probably, 70, 80, 90 years old. Hopefully we live that long. We will be talking about him for as long as baseball's around.
I love that you said that. I love that anytime anybody says Shohei Ohtani is the best player, because he is.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 years, that gives us enough time till his third Tommy John surgery. They give it like 5 to 6 years after the second one. So he'll be hitting, he'll be pitching. There's no doubt. It is Shohei Ohtani the next 5 years. If you ask me 10 years, then I'd probably start getting into like maybe the Bobby Witt train, maybe the fact that Juan Soto would be 36 and he'd be going like Hall of Fame status. So, but 5 years, Shohei Ohtani, I don't even think second place is very close.
Scott?
I'm with you. We'll show your two on the board, but I'm the same. I don't think it's close either. The only thing that I see preventing this is injury. That's it, right? If
of course.
the arm's a problem,
that's
can't stay on the field. Right,
Yes,
that's for everyone.
everybody.
But Shohei's doing something that no one else is doing, right? He's playing two positions like this at such a high level, and he's had arm issues in the past. So I would say the percentage chance of injury could be a little bit higher for someone like this. But what, Kratz?
But he's got a back. He just won an MVP in the year that he got hurt. Like he hurt half of his value, and he won an MVP. Like he elevated his hitting. So like if Ronald Acuna gets hurt, because you got to go apples to apples. Everybody gets hurt. You lose your one ability. Shohei Ohtani gets injured. He can still hit. He gets injured pitching. He can still go out and hit and win an MVP. So I feel like the good money is on Shohei Ohtani here.
Todd, I feel like he was arguing with me even though I said Ohtani. That's worse than me saying, give me your best answer.
No,
I'm
he
Ohtani.
did.
I'm Ohtani. I was saying
No,
the only reason why it wouldn't happen is if there's an injury, which, yes, you can say for anyone, but he is doing something that is so freaking difficult that nobody else has done it since Babe Ruth, and he wasn't doing it like this on a consistent basis. Here, let me throw this out at you guys. Part of the reason why we chose to do this was the answers that we saw in the article from friends at CBS. I don't see any Ohtanis on there. So two of the dudes picked Junior, and one picked Gunnar Henderson.
A couple Bobby Whips, a couple of Acuna. I mean, they're not bad picks, but
absolutely.
But the best over the next 5 years, you got a guy that can play both sides of the field. I don't know. I don't see that.
Nope.
If it's 10 years, it's different because age starts to factor in. But 5 years, even if Ohtani gives us 3 or 4 at the level that he's been at as a pitcher and a hitter, and if we want to just play the simplistic war game, he is going to fly past everyone based on him being able to do two things, to hit and pitch. I know he's not playing defense, but pitching and hitting, which no one else is doing like that. All right, next up, best team over the next half decade. And I'll present what these writers threw out there first because they've got 4 of them. 4 picked the Dodgers, although one pointed out Baltimore could be that team if they spent. And one picked the Red Sox.
You got to pick one. Ooh,
yeah.
Hey. Okay. Hey, listen, we don't know, but I guess we'll see. You want me to go first?
I mean, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting. I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I said the Mets, and there's a 2 reasons why, one big reason because Steve Cohen is not afraid to spend, as we know, and he brought over Juan Soto, who's an absolute stud of a baseball player. And I know Derek brought this up before, but this was one of my main points, that if Vladdy Guerrero doesn't sign big time, he's coming over to the Mets, and him and Soto together will make this team even more of a beast. So there's a lot of unknowns, but I think Cohen, with the way he spends and who he wants to get over the next half decade, I think the Mets will be that best team.
Okay, they'll be good. They'll definitely be good.
Are you guaranteeing?
I'm guaranteeing the Dodgers will be the best team because they are not only stacked right now, I thought about the Braves, and you're like, okay, Braves are stacked for the next 5 years. Orioles, you can't discount the Orioles. I know they faltered at the end, and I think that leaves a sour taste. They're not spending
They're
money.
not spending.
They're good. They're not 5 years good. The Dodgers will stay consistent because they will get the next best player. They're going to – whoever that next best player is, they're going to go get them. They're going to cycle through. People are like, oh, well, they're going to age. These contracts aren't going to be very good. They'll just get the next best player. That's what they've been doing, and that's what they're going to continue to do. Oh, and they have one of the best farm systems that continually churns out value and people who step in and have success in the big leagues.
I love both answers here. I love that
Thank you.
Podfather gave us a little bit of uniqueness. You want to factor in a farm system. You want to factor in resources. Of course, you want to factor in who's currently on the roster. But, man, I love this rivalry. I love that graphic, too. That's really good. We got a little L.A. field, but also a little big apple and right
Big
center.
apple, baby.
Yeah, I like it. I like that little morph that we got. All right, last one. How many teams will there be in 2030?
Oh my God, we got the same number too. I think it's going to be 30. I was looking over this. Each division has 5. I mean, you bring another team or two involved, it messes with the whole lingo. Then when you have just 2 sides of 16.
Yes.
No.
Wait. No. Hold on,
split.
Kratz. I'm gonna do some math here. Yeah, 32 would be a much easier number for the league from a math perspective.
I don't see it would have to be an even number. It'd have to be 2 more teams, and I see they want to expand to another team, but that would just mix everything up. I would love to see it.
No, I mean, if it happens, it'll be 32. The reason I said 30 is because we're not close enough to having these stadiums. And Manfred said it, that we have to figure out the A's situation and the Rays situation. And if we were locked in 100%, the plans are good to go by 28, where they're into their new stadiums, then I'd say yes. If you told me 7 years, I would change my number to 32. I think it'll just take a little bit to really solidify this Vegas / A's situation and the Rays situation. It seems solidified. Now maybe it's not. This is giving teams an opportunity. I don't know when Manfred's contract's up, but it would be something that if his contract's up in 30, maybe he would have, the desire to make sure there was 2 more teams in. I just don't think it's going to happen in the next 5 years.
No, what you're saying makes sense. First of all, yes, there'll be 2 teams added. It will happen at some point. But think about this. If Manfred gets it done before the end of his tenure with it, which I think is around that time period, now you add usually at least about 4 years for the ballpark to be built. So let's say figure this out by 2027. I think that's probably a good over-under, 2027.5. Do they get this figured out in the next 2.5 years? Okay, so if they figure it out by 2027, you're not getting a team in by 2030. So I'm with you, Kratz. The early 2030s is when we will have 2 fresh franchises. And the reason why the cities get confusing right now is Vegas was definitely in the mix for an expansion franchise. That supposedly is not happening, as we continue to at least get some news that the A's are moving along with what they're doing to get themselves over there. Nashville is always used as the threat by teams right now, like the White Sox, who are trying to get a new ballpark. I think the Rays have tried to float that out there when they had their battles. Yep, Montreal. So in my mind, I think if no other teams relocate between now and when we get those 2 new teams, Newark, New Jersey will not be one of the teams that gets a franchise. The 2 that I have on my list, because it's going to be one East Coast, one West Coast, and they will completely redo how Major League Baseball looks. They will have East and West, the whole deal. Some of you will love that. Some of you purists will hate that. You will have Nashville. You will have Utah. Those will be your 2 new teams. What do you guys think?
All right. Well, I like both of those, and I'm thinking Atlantic City, and I'm thinking Salt Lake City.
Well, Salt Lake City is correct. That is the one that I chose as well. So I'm with you there.
I'm going Portland. I'm going Portland and Nashville.
Portland, Maine. Nice.
No, it's not going to be. It's not going to be the Sea Dogs. It's not going to be the Sea Biscuits.
What's wrong with the Sea Biscuits?
The Sea Biscuits are nice, but they're not going to get a team.
Oh, darn.
Portland is going to come in hot. Nashville, I think, is a slam dunk. As much as AJ wants to say that city that he lives in, we just won't because he's not on the show today.
And also, Orlando has no chance unless Tampa Bay doesn't happen somehow.
It won't be an
I just don't see them adding a third team in Florida with what they currently have. So anyway, we got a lot of time to think about it.
Our next guest.
Okay, actually, that is a good question for our next guest. Brent Suter will join us next on FT.
Suter B.
All right, let me get to a question. It was a good one, but a simple one. I promised I would ask it. I'm looking for the name, but if you're watching and listening right now, you know who you are. They just wanted one bounce back team for 2025, a team that look like crap that you think will look much better going into next season, whether it's because of what they did in the offseason or you just think they drastically underperformed. I will start.
Could we say it together, like 1, 2, 3, and we say our teams? Because he's gonna say my team.
All right, ready?
A bounce back year, right? Bounce back year.
Bounce back year from a team that will be much better next season than they were this season. Mine's a little bit different. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Cincinnati Reds.
Rangers. What did you say?
Say me and Todd. Me and Scotty are on the same page.
I knew he would copy off somebody.
Rangers.
That was a good one too.
What?
Reds.
That's your opinion. That's your opinion. Don't start.
Reds are bothering me a little bit, I will say right now in the offseason though, because I like some things that they did last offseason. Oh, well, that didn't work. So we can't extend the budget anymore. I'm like, no, it did work. You just got hit with some untimely injuries. Like I like what they're building. I like even the way that they've been drafting some potential pitchers that could be top end pitchers. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I want them to be so good. I do. It's my love, my first love. I want them to be great. Got to go get some more. You gotta fight for some people though, man. You gotta go. They had some. Matty McClain was unhealthy. It was not healthy all year long. They have some pitchers that are really good. I think with Tito over there, it's gonna be a different story. But don't be afraid to go get somebody else. Don't be afraid. Come on, man. So
I don't know that they need anybody else.
I think they do.
I think they got a workhorse, and nobody really thought of Singer as a workhorse, Brady Singer as a workhorse, but I think they were lacking in somebody giving them all the starts.
Mm-hmm.
Now you pencil that in. You already have a rotation that is super talented, but I think it just locks in those innings, which is what they needed.
They got Trevino to pair up with Stevenson, and they got Suter B, Brent Suter, joining us in a matter of seconds as he signed back with the Reds in November. Here we go. We're going to talk about the Playmakers Classic with Brent Suter. Let's first say hello to our guest who has the gear at this point. It's not like you're signing with a new team. You're back with the Cincinnati Reds. I like that, Brent. Yeah, there it is. And you got it done in November. I'm sure the fam was giving you all kinds of hugs and high fives and whatever they do just to be like, thank you. No January, February action. Let's get this done quickly. So great to see you. And yes, how popular are you this offseason within your friends and family for getting this done early?
No, it's been great. Signing back with the Reds has been awesome. And just playing for the hometown team has been a dream this whole time. And I'm, maybe up in the game and the popularity. Like, oh, you want some BP passes? I got you. I know a guy, all that stuff. But it's really cool. the staff and players and everybody's been great. So can't write it up any better. It's been awesome.
Hey, I'm a little upset. I mean, you got fresh gear before I did. I'm usually the one that gets the gear. I gotta make a call here. This is something else. Anyway, that's fine. That's fine. You deserve it. You're a new guy. You got Jose Trevino on the Reds now, one of our good buddies, as you know. We got his glove. We talk to him all the time. Have you talked to him at all? Have you been in discussions with any players on the team and the excitement that you guys got building up for this year coming up?
Yeah, for sure. Reached out to he and Singer and got him on the group chat, and been talking to him a little bit, trying to help him out with where to live and just welcome him to the team and all that. And they seem like great dudes. I've heard great things about both those guys. So really excited to have them. They'll help us out a lot too, on and off the field. And coming from playoff teams, they're bringing that winning culture with them. And we need all those energy giver guys in here, and with Tito leading the ship, we're super excited about this year, big time.
You nervous about having Tito as your manager because he's kind of a serious guy and you're not a serious guy? So are you figuring out how to change and be not who you are?
I'm going to be who I am through thick and thin. I'll tell you that. And I've got a chance to meet him a couple months ago. He came to Cincinnati to surprise Marty at a Miracle Bowl event, and he was just amazing. 5 minutes after talking to this guy, you're ready to run through a wall for him. So definitely a special guy. He's a Hall of Famer for a reason. And yeah, like I said, so excited to play for him, and so excited what he can do for this city. You know what I mean? Just getting baseball. Getting Reds baseball back in Cincinnati in the winning way will be amazing.
Talked about group chat. You talked about putting Brady Singer into the group chat. What are some of the things that are talked about with a team that we just talked about it in our break? The fact that felt like the Reds are a bounce back team. I had them winning the division. I had you guys winning the division last year. Losing Matty McClain, some guys underperforming, different things happened. What's talked about in your group chat for your team this offseason?
Just talking about how 2025 is going to be ours. You know what I mean? Kind of just the messaging is like, hey, everyone get after it. We're trusting all the work we're putting in this offseason. Obviously, everyone's doing their own thing with their own trainers, but the mindset is we're coming back in 2025 is ours. This is the year. So, and then just, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that stuff. Guys, wishing India and Cruz all the best as they were traded away. But just the mindset is this is our year. Let's do everything we can to pull together and get this thing done this year.
I want to ask you about a teammate who you spent a year with. Now you get another season with Elly De La Cruz. Do you think that there's another gear for him? Because, this question's interesting because sometimes when you say that, I mean, a player could take it like, hey, you don't think I've reached my full potential? But also with someone like him, you just feel like there's certain parts of the game that he's still mastering based on his age and his ability. So, like the baseball IQ will continue to pick up. What do you see from him, and what do you think that next gear could look like?
I definitely think there's probably 4 more gears with this guy. He's just an immense talent and so young. And I think just getting stronger and physically developing will help, getting to the top of the zone with fastballs, being able to see the ball deeper from the hitting side. But just as an athlete, you can't get much better than him athletically, but I think he might even continue to get faster, honestly. He's that much of a physical specimen and just a great teammate and great dude. So I think there's a couple more gears for sure from him. He is, the rock of our franchise at this point, and big time. I'm a big time fan of his. I was a fan of his before I even was his teammate, just from the other side. And I think he's going to do great things for this game. And he's Hall of Fame talent for sure. Just a matter of staying healthy and reaching those gears.
Suter B. As much as I'm a big fan of yours, Scott Braun is a bigger fan of Elly De La Cruz.
Yes.
So if you could ever get like one of his headbands or something signed for Scott Braun, he would really appreciate that and be like, write it to Scott Braun, your favorite, your best,
Wait,
your
bring
biggest
me in.
fan.
No, bring me in. I'm not an autograph guy. I've got a much easier request. He's one of the few, in my mind, stars left in our sport that have not been on our show, as we are almost 2 years into foul territory. He's one of the few left. And I know he actually would want to come on. It just, I haven't come across him in person. My dad actually met him at a party. I told him, you got to tell him. And he was like, yeah, he said, it's all good. Someone's got to set up. I just don't know his people, but that's all we need to do. So maybe next time we have you on, it's you and him sitting in the clubhouse joining us, or it's us when we're in Cincinnati, because we usually go there once or twice a year.
Yeah, for sure. I'm down for either of those things, for sure. That'd be great.
And I know he knows English, but Suter B could translate if he ever feels uncomfortable, because I know Suter's Spanish isn't as good as my Spanish, but you have a much better accent because you do different voices really well.
And also, Brent, Kratz makes up words all the time, and you know him, so you can translate, any Kratzisms that are made up, because we all need help.
Yeah, middleman, I'm in.
Okay, perfect. So now back to my question that I really wanted to ask you instead of fanboying with Ellie. The Dodgers just announced, well, not the Dodgers didn't announce, but it's been announced that Hye-seong Kim signed a 3-year deal with the Dodgers. What's your first reaction when you hear another free agent signs with the Dodgers? Is there a little eye roll in your mind when you're like, we're in the National League, and I know you want to beat them. I'm not saying you don't. But is it okay what the Dodgers are doing?
I mean, quite frankly, it's a free market, and they're free to do what they want, and guys are signing with them. So it's players' choice as well. I know money's a huge factor in it, but it's also where you want to play for these guys. And it's one of those things that just makes you want to beat them more. I mean, they're a great challenge. They're a great team. Every time you play them, it's you gotta play your best ball to beat them, and that makes winning against them that much better. But they are certainly doing their part in free agency the last couple of years to, set a statement to the rest of the league, and to what we can control to respond to that, and that's playing good ball and coming together with who we got, and we feel like our roster, we can play with anybody. So that's certainly good for them that they're getting these guys, but we are very very confident in our roster and what we got going with our organization, and we're ready for that challenge.
Brent, one more for you, and then I want to get to Players Trust, and then for the FT fam, we'll get to that signing too in the next segment, which the news just broke. So we talked in our last segment about expansion teams. Which 2 cities do you think would be great fits for the next MLB teams whenever that happens?
Yeah, I always lean towards Nashville. I think it's just a great city. It's already a major league market for hockey and football, and it's growing so much. There's not really a team in that area necessarily. It's kind of right in between Atlanta and us for that southeastern market. I think that would be a great one. And then I've heard great things about Montreal. I've never been, but bringing baseball back there would be amazing. I've heard, Council used to tell us stories about Montreal, how cool it was. You feel like you're in over in Europe, and they love their baseball. So I think that would be a cool one to see back. So those are my 2 votes.
Love that. Those are great ones. All right, let's talk about the Playmakers Classic, because you signed with the Reds. You're definitely going to be in Arizona in February, downtown Phoenix, for the event. We've had many players on. Obviously, all of it goes to a great cause. The proceeds and the Players Trust, really makes a positive impact in the community in so many different ways and supports so many different players' charities. And we've got some new information too, as we've learned about some of the entertainment that's going to be out there. Also, it looks like we've got spirits presented by Mark Wahlberg and Michael Bublé. Those are some big names. And the headline performer is Brian Kelly from Florida Georgia Line. We gave out some free tickets in December. Brent's going to be there. Now you can go buy tickets, playerstrust.org. What else do you have for us, Brent?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize how good of a cause it is. Player Trust meets the guys where they're at with their causes, accentuates and helps support anything the players are doing, specifically with youth education and sports development. But there's all kinds of things the Players Trust supports, and it's an amazing group of people and just an amazing resource for us players. And the Playmakers Classic is also a blast. We've gone. My wife and I were able to go last year in Vegas during the player meetings, and we were like 10 feet away from the Goo Goo Dolls lead singer jamming. We got some great prizes, some great games, and just a lot of fun. So I definitely encourage anyone and everyone who can go to make it out there. It's February 18th at Warehouse 215. So it'll be good.
Yeah, limited number of tickets available, playerstrust.org. And it is truly one of the best parties in baseball. It is the right mix of intimate, VIP, the food, the drinks, the entertainment, the whole deal. And you actually get to hang out and spend time with big leaguers, which you just rarely get to see an event that has so many big leaguers just kind of relaxing and appreciating the fact that people have spent time and money to donate to this cause. So, Brent, thanks for doing what you do and making a positive impact. Thanks for joining us. Congrats on re-signing with the Reds, and we'll catch you in spring training, bud. All right.
Of course, guys, thank you so much for having me. Have a great rest of the offseason.
Thank you. You too. Talk soon. Well, the next couple months leading up to the season, we talk about futures. BetMGM has all the 2025 info that you need on the teams and then the players too. So here's Juan Soto, and the player must wait. Is this real? The player must play 159 regular season games for this. I got to look up that part. Over under is 33 and a half home runs for Juan Soto. Almost nobody plays 159 games, by the way.
No.
33 and a half. I don't know if that looks right. We'll give that a check. So don't quote us on that part. 33 and a half home runs over under this year for Juan Soto in a park where it's a little more difficult, the Metropolitans.
37.
This is a slam dunk for me. He's played 35 games at Citi Field. Now, granted, he's facing Mets pitching. He's not facing the rest of the league.
Granted.
He's got 12 dingers in 35 games.
Feels comfy.
I'm taking that over. This guy showed he can make adjustments to his home run swing when he went to Yankee Stadium. He has protection. This guy he doesn't chase out of the zone, and he's not even in his prime yet. 28 to 32 is your prime. He's going to do it. He's going to go over. This is my lock for the year.
Wow.
Ooh,
lock for the year. I will say we smashed the prognosticators that were saying that Juan Soto was not going to hit as many homers in Yankee Stadium. We cracked up about it, and we were very accurate because he was a 40-plus guy. I mean, there were some people that didn't think he'd get to 30 last year, which is insane. So I'm with you, Kratz. I don't know if it's my lock of the year, but I'll take the over on that one too. He can adjust the swing to any park. The power, I think, could still go up a notch. I mean, like this is a guy, like you said, that's hitting his prime really at this point, or just getting there in terms of what we see usually from the ages in MLB when players do their best damage. Yeah, I feel really good about it. The way that he's handled the park in the past, take the over on that one right now, and probably best to block it in now. I mean, if Pete Alonso comes back, that only helps the cause too, to add more lineup protection. That's not being factored in at the moment.
Sir.
So go check it out. A little basketball offer, because that's what's actually playing real games right now. Each Friday throughout the season, you get to pick a player you think is going to score first in the game. If it's not your player, but he scores the second field goal of the game, you still get your stake back in cash. And you only get there with the sportsbook born in Vegas. That is BetMGM. A gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Be right back. We have a deal. Hye-seong Kim from Korea is joining a team that just never does anything in the offseason and expects to put championships together. The defending world champion Los Angeles Dodgers add him to the table. And there you go, Fabian Ardia, who writes for the Athletic and covers the Dodgers, confirms the agreement. The posting window was going to expire in a few hours, so he gets the deal done. Looks like some people saying 3 years, 22 mil, and that there's some potential options in there. Still a lot floating out as we're talking about it, but he hit 326 with an OPS of 841 in the KBO last year. He's tight with the other players that have recently come over from South Korea, and that includes Hye-seong Kim. The name obviously is very close. Jung-hoo Lee, also tight with Hye-seong Kim. So here's a player that can be added to the Dodgers. Kratz. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to replace someone like Gavin Lux at second base. I think he can mix around a little bit at the middle infield spots. But how do you think this impacts the ball club?
I mean, it's huge for them. It's huge for them. Another guy that's adds a different dimension for them. And I don't think they would have gone to a 3-year deal if they thought it was like, ooh, I don't know what there is. Their evaluators clearly have shown or clearly have evaluated the fact that he adds a dimension that I don't know that they necessarily have. They're not a big strikeout team. This guy's more of a contact guy. He's going to maybe give them a few more bases that Shohei's not going to be stealing, because when he pitches, he doesn't steal as many bases. His legs, I think he keeps a close tab on that. So I think it just adds a different dimension. You look at it, you're like, oh, Teoscar, Shohei, Freddie, Mookie, all dudes that are just banging balls out of the ballpark. Max Muncy. Now you have a guy that you can mix in there, and maybe his versatility will kind of take over for what Chris Taylor. They lost with Chris Taylor. They can't get guys that are just singular positions. They keep getting guys who have versatility, and they just mix and match that best 26 dudes on the roster, and they add another one here.
And I'll be brief on this. I agree totally. The versatility. I mean, you don't see that too often. But guys can mix and match. You can see what the Tigers have done with their team. Guys can play all different positions. It's starting to grow a little bit more, finding that super utility guy that in case a dude needs a break or, all right, we got to move this guy down the lineup. You're coming in. This is a monster pickup again. I'm just blown away about what the Dodgers are doing, and it's all in good, and good for them. They can. You see guys sit back like, oh, we'll be fine. We got the same. No, they just keep going more and more, and this is the new norm for them. They're going to be champions for a long time.
Yeah, we'll of course talk more about this on Monday's show and on Dodgers Territory. FT Fan, be back. Let's keep this going and think about it, because immediately a player signs, right? And already fans are going, oh, well, Lux is gone. Let's trade him. This guy can play second base and short. Let me throw something at you that a couple people in the chat have been mentioning. What if the Mookie Betts experiment at shortstop ends again at some point, and you're feeling good about Lux and Kim? Then you have Kim at short, and you have Lux at second base, and you back in the outfield. It's not a bad thought.
Oof.
Again is the part that needs to be listened to, that Scott just said. They've done this Mookie Betts thing. Is that the value? Does Mookie feel like his legs are not under him when he's at shortstop? Like, this team is full of people who are not necessarily, the egos are out of it. If it's not working out for Mookie, something's not feeling well, they have backup options. If this guy can play, if Kim can play shortstop in the big leagues, that is a super huge value, because you don't just find big league shortstops on the side of the road. It's hard to do. So just add so much more value to him.
It's incredible. Absolutely. This guy, bro, Hawaii living. Look at him. Yeah, his glasses are off tilt too. Hey,
this is a baseball player too, guys. But this is a baseball player, right? Who's the big baseball player that the Dodgers acquired who made a massive difference in the postseason, who they had been trying to get for years, apparently?
Tommy Edman?
Yes, Tommy Edman.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah, no, sometimes you get confused just like I do, but okay.
Tommy Edman was also sought after by the Yankees, and he was the prime example of someone the Yankees needed more of and that the Dodgers had, and now they try and add to that, right? This is a guy who has maybe no elite tools, but multiple tools, right? He can run the bases.
Yeah.
He's stolen a bunch of bags. He can play middle infield. He'll make contact for you. It might take a little time for him to adjust. Sometimes it does for the players coming over from Korea versus Japan. Professional baseball, the NPB is definitely a much better league than the KBO, but this just plays to what the Dodgers are looking for. And I love it because I want teams to continue to value baseball players and not just what looks good on the, for lack of a better term, analytics, the three true outcome player, that whole deal. Let's slap, and a reminder to the FT fam that we are now back and fully functioning every single weekday, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. We will be here for you if you're watching on TV or if you're watching on YouTube, listening wherever you get your pods, the whole deal. We have the whole FT network, which is double-digit shows now. So we've got all kinds of team shows, including Dodgers Territory, which on their next episode on Monday will be all over this Kim signing for LA. And yeah, I made it up until about 2:53 Eastern time, and then the Honolulu sunshine just started coming in hot. So this is not a vacation.
For you
No, I'm working. This was just a layover.
It is a vacation.
It's just a layover. I'm working hard.
Layover in a hotel room for. Are you flying out tonight? Or are you staying over?
Tonight. Yeah. So our show ends 10 o'clock Hawaii time, and my flight's not until like 9. So it is nice to have the entire day. The 5 a.m. wake up, I'm good. I'll be back in Orlando on Monday. Yeah. I'm not the 5 a.m. 5:30 wake up.
All those kids in the background are taking a nap for you, all right?
They're having too much fun. No, tell them to take a nap. I'm going to give them your address. They're going to come play with your kiddos, and they're going to have a great time in Studio Todd Father.
I'll take them.
You'll take them?
Let's go put them on the team.
Good. I'm bringing a plane ride of little leaguers. See you Monday, FT fam.